Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will bring a vote to the government to dismiss the director of Shin Bet Domestic Security Service. In a statement from Netanyahu's office yesterday, the Prime Minister said he has an ongoing distrust for Ronan Bar and that trust in the head of the Domestic Security Service is crucial at a time of war. According to Israeli media, the vote to dismiss the Shin Bet chief is expected to take place in a special cabinet meeting on Wednesday. But in a statement, Bar said while he took responsibility for the agency's part in failing to prevent the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack that re-sparked the war in Palestine, it was clear that the intent behind his dismissal was not related to it. The Prime Minister's expectation of a personal loyalty that contradicts the public interest is an entirely improper expectation, Bar said. Israeli Democratic Party chief Yair Golan also slammed the move to dismiss Bar and wrote on X that Netanyahu declared war on the state of Israel. Iran will respond to U.S. President Donald Trump's invitation to talks after proper scrutiny, the Foreign Ministry said today, accusing Washington of not matching actions with words. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and President Masoud Pezeshkian have rejected Trump's letters and public cautions for nuclear talks as deceptive and bullying. But Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Bagay said a diplomatic response was in the works. Bagay told media Iran he did not plan to immediately publish Trump's letters, but that its contents did not deviate significantly from Trump's public comments. The Iranian spokesperson noted what he called very contradictory and inconsistent signals from Washington, which was voicing readiness for talks whilst also applying new sanctions on Tehran's economy.
ما فعلا بنای بر انتشار رسانه‌ای این پیام نداریم، ولی به طور کلی خدمتتون عرض می‌کنم اون چیزی که در رسانه‌ها منتشر شده عمدتاً گمانه‌زنی است و مبنای دقیقی نداره. فحوای نامه با توجه به صحبت‌های عمومی رئیس جمهور آمریکا از اون صحبت‌ها فاصله چندانی نداره و بر اساس همون عناصر تنظیم شده. واقعیت این است که پیام‌هایی که از آمریکا گرفته میشه پیام‌های بسیار ضد و نقیض و متناقض هست. یعنی همزمان با اظهار آمادگی برای مذاکره و گفتگو تحریم‌های گسترده علیه بخش‌های مختلف تجاری و تولیدی ما وضع میشه. وزیر نفت ما که تنها جرمش انجام وظایف رسمی و قانونی و ملیش هست برای تولید و فروش نفت مورد تحریم قرار میگیره.
In his first term, Trump withdrew the U.S. from a 2015 deal between Iran and major powers that had placed strict limits on its nuclear activities in exchange for sanction reliefs. After Trump pulled out in 2018 and reimposed sanctions, Iran breached and far surpassed those limits in the development of its nuclear program. Western powers accuse Iran of seeking nuclear weapons by enriching uranium up to 60% purity, above what they deem is justifiable for a civilian program. Western powers accuse Iran of seeking nuclear weapons by enriching uranium up to 60% purity, above what they deem is justifiable for a civilian program. Tehran says the development of its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes and that it respects its commitments under international law.
Residents gathered at the site of an attack in Yemen on Sunday as bulldozers and volunteers worked to clear debris in search of survivors. The United States launched strikes which the Houthi-run health ministry said killed at least 31 people in what is the biggest U.S. military operation in the Middle East since President Donald Trump took office in January. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Sunday they would continue until the Iran-aligned Houthis stopped their attacks on Red Sea shipping. He told Fox News, quote, "The minute the Houthis say we'll stop shooting at your ships, we'll stop shooting at your drones, this campaign will end. But until then, it will be unrelenting." The Houthis' military spokesperson on Sunday said without offering evidence that the group had targeted U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman and its warships with ballistic missiles and drones in response to the U.S. attacks. The Pentagon did not immediately respond to a request for comment. U.S. Central Command released footage on Saturday showing fighter jets taking off from an undisclosed location and ships firing missiles and hitting targets. The Houthi movement's political bureau described the attacks as a war crime and said its forces were ready to meet escalation with escalation, while Moscow urged Washington to cease the strikes. The Houthis, who have taken control of most of Yemen over the past decade, said last week they would resume attacks on Israeli ships passing through the Red Sea if Israel did not lift a block on aid entering Gaza. They had launched scores of attacks on shipping after Israel's war with Hamas began in late 2023, saying they were acting in solidarity with Gaza. Trump told Iran, the Houthis' main backer, to stop supporting the group immediately. He also threatened to hold Iran accountable. While Iran condemned the U.S. strikes and the commander of its Revolutionary Guard said the Houthis make decisions on their own.
The Trump administration has deported alleged members of a Venezuelan gang from the U.S. despite a court order forbidding it. And late on Sunday, the White House said the judge who gave that order did not have the authority to block the administration's actions. It marks an escalation in Trump's challenge to the U.S. systems of checks and balances and the independence of its courts. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to rapidly deport more than 200 alleged members of Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang that has been linked to kidnapping, extortion, and contract killings. A day later, federal Judge James Boasberg blocked the application of the law for 14 days, saying the statute refers to, quote, hostile acts perpetrated by another country that are, quote, commensurate to war. Boasberg said that any flights carrying migrants processed under the law should return to the U.S. On Sunday, in response to an article about Boasberg's order, El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele wrote "oopsie" too late on X and posted a video showing men being hustled off a plane in the dark of night and taken to the country's terrorism confinement center, a mega prison that can hold up to 40,000 inmates. Reuters could not confirm the full scale of the deportation operations or the precise timing of Bukele's video. Later on Sunday, the Trump administration denied it was defying the judge's order, with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying, quote, a single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil. She also said the court had no lawful basis and that federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over how a president conducts foreign affairs. Hours after that, Trump said on Air Force One that he was justified in using the act because he saw recent years of increased immigration like war.
This is war. In many respects, it's more dangerous than war because, in war they have uniforms. You know who you're shooting at.
The American Civil Liberties Union was one of the nonprofits that challenged Trump's use of the act. Here's the lead attorney at the ACLU, Lee Gallant.
I think we're on very dangerous ground here. This is as lawless an action as the administration has taken. If the administration is allowed to use wartime authorities anytime it wants to remove people, I think we are going to see more and more people being subjected to this type of Alien Enemies Act and a blurring of wartime authority with domestic authority. I cannot stress how important it is that the federal courts prevent this from happening.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Salvadoran government did not respond to requests for comment, while the State Department declined to comment.
Widespread demonstrations erupted when President Donald Trump, in his first term, issued a travel ban for 7 majority Muslim countries. And now, the Trump administration is considering a new travel ban. That's according to sources familiar with the matter and an internal memo seen by Reuters, which shows 41 countries divided into 3 separate groups. The first group of 10 countries, including citizens from Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, Cuba, and North Korea, would be set for a full visa suspension. The second group of 5 countries, Eritrea, Haiti, Laos, Myanmar, and South Sudan, would face partial visa suspensions. The third group, which includes Belarus and Pakistan, would be considered for a partial visa suspension too, if, according to the memo, their governments, quote, do not make efforts to address deficiencies within 60 days. A U.S. official told Reuters there could be changes on the list and that it was yet to be approved by the administration. When Trump took office on January 20th, he issued an executive order requiring intensified security vetting of any foreigners seeking U.S. entry. That order directed several cabinet members to submit by March 21st a list of countries from which travel should be partly or fully suspended. The State Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Reuters.
More than 200 alleged Venezuelan gang members arrived in El Salvador on Sunday after being deported from the U.S., the Salvadoran president said. Video released by the El Salvador government shows them being taken to the Terrorism Confinement Center, a mega prison that can hold up to 40,000 inmates. U.S. President Donald Trump invoked the 1798 Alien Enemies Act on Friday to rapidly deport the alleged members. A day later, a federal judge blocked the application of the law for 14 days, saying the statute refers to, quote, hostile acts perpetrated by another country that are commensurate to war. The Trump administration has appealed the ruling. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government said it rejected the use of the anachronistic U.S. law to deport alleged gang members, saying it violated migrants' rights. The deported are allegedly part of Tren de Aragua, a criminal organization that's been linked to kidnapping, extortion, organized crime, and contract killings.
I, Mark Carney.
Former central banker Mark Carney was sworn in as Prime Minister of Canada on Friday amid threats of U.S. tariffs that could devastate the economy. He succeeds Justin Trudeau, who had a combative and often cold relationship with U.S. President Donald Trump. Carney said he looked forward to speaking with Trump when the moment was right.
We respect the United States. We respect President Trump. We'll both be looking out for our countries, but he knows, and I know from long experience, that we can find mutual solutions that win for both.
He had this to say about talk from the Trump administration about annexing Canada.
It's crazy.
Friday caps a momentous rise for Carney, who became the first Canadian Prime Minister without any serious political experience. He was previously the head of the Bank of Canada and later the Bank of England. Carney crushed his rivals in a race to become leader of the ruling Liberal Party and replace Trudeau, who spent more than 9 years in office. However, he will likely not be in the post for long. Canadians must head to the polls by October, though Liberal insiders say Carney will call a snap election within the next 2 weeks. If he doesn't, opposition parties say they will unite to bring down the minority Liberal government at the end of March. Opinion polls currently suggest it will be a close race with the official opposition Conservatives, with neither party gaining enough seats to form a majority government. Carney said he would visit London and Paris next week, as Ottawa continues to shore up alliances in Europe.
Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte made his first appearance before the International Criminal Court on Friday, where he faces murder allegations. Duterte spoke via video link from a detention unit. He arrived in the Netherlands from Manila on Wednesday, after being arrested on an ICC warrant on charges of crimes against humanity. His lawyer said Duterte was too ill to give evidence, and that his arrest and transfer to the Netherlands was an abduction.
To us lawyers, this would be called an extrajudicial rendition. To the less legally inclined, it was a pure and simple kidnapping.
Duterte's lawyer said his client was suffering from debilitating medical issues. The former Philippine leader has said he suffers from several ailments, including a chronic neuromuscular disorder and migraines. But a presiding judge responded that the court doctor, who examined Duterte upon arrival, was of the opinion that he was, quote, fully mentally aware and fit. Prosecutors have accused him of carrying out a systemic attack on the civilian population during his presidency. Thousands of purported drug dealers and users were killed during a crackdown, when death squads he allegedly created and armed carried out widespread extrajudicial killings. In Manila, victims' families watched the proceedings.
The first time that Duterte flashed on the screen, I got really emotional. I can totally say that I am happy, because how can I be happy knowing that the reason why I'm here in the first place and why Duterte's there on the ICC. But it also reminded me that this is the result of all the calls for justice.
Duterte is set to be the first Asian former head of state to go on trial at the ICC. A confirmation of charges hearing has been set to start on September 23rd. A trial would not be expected to start until early 2026.
Officials say at least 59 people are dead after a fire tore through an unlicensed nightclub in North Macedonia early Sunday morning. Video from the event verified by Reuters showed a band playing on stage at Pulse nightclub as two flares spat white sparks into the air, some of which set the ceiling ablaze around 3 a.m. Hundreds of people then scrambled for the small venue's only exit as the fire spread, leaving many trapped. Relatives and friends of the victims gathered outside the main hospital in Kochani on Sunday, where some of the more than 150 people injured are being treated. Just hours earlier, Maria Taseva was with her sister at the club when disaster struck. She recounted the events to a Reuters journalist.
The fire broke out. Everyone started screaming and shouting, "Get out, get out!" But unfortunately, there was only one exit, and there were 1,500 people inside. Then everyone started pushing each other, so I headed for the exit. I don't know how, but I ended up on the ground. I couldn't get up, and at that moment, people started stomping on me. I don't know how, but somehow I managed to get out. I'm fine now, but there are many dead. It's terrible.
Authorities say the number of people inside was lower, at 500. Taseva was asked if she lost anyone.
Yes, I did. My sister died. All of them got saved, and she didn't.
Red Cross volunteer Mustafa Saidov described the dire scenes inside the hospital.
What you see here is a sad situation. Inside, where they identify victims, it's far worse. You see that the parents are also quite young, in their 40s. Their children are 18 or 20 years old. As I said, the situation is brutal, chaotic. The stories are also very sad. And unfortunately, many young lives are lost.
Some patients were transferred to neighboring countries, including Bulgaria, for treatment. North Macedonia's interior minister said more than 20 of the injured and 3 of those killed were minors. He added that authorities arrested about 20 people in connection with the fire, including the club manager, members of the band, and government officials. The country's Prime Minister, Christian Mikoski, said investigators had found the club's license had been issued illegally and that they had reason to suspect that, quote, graft and corruption were involved, without providing details. He promised those responsible would face justice and declared 7 days of national mourning.
A SpaceX capsule delivered 4 astronauts to the International Space Station early yesterday in a NASA crew swap mission that will allow a pair of astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, to return home after an unplanned 9 months on the orbiting lab. About 29 hours since launching at 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time last Friday from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the Crew 10 astronaut SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule docked at the International Space Station at 12:04 a.m. Eastern Time yesterday. Otherwise a routine crew rotation flight, the Crew 10 mission is a long-awaited first step to bring Wilmore and Williams back to Earth, a part of a plan set by NASA last year that has been given greater urgency by President Donald Trump since he took office in January. Wilmore and Williams, both of whom are veteran NASA astronauts and retired U.S. Navy test pilots, have remained on the station after problems with Boeing's Starliner capsule forced NASA to bring it back empty.
Thousands of Jair Bolsonaro supporters gathered on Copacabana Beach on Sunday. The ex-president of Brazil faces charges of leading a plot to topple the government and undermine the country's democracy after he lost a 2022 election. Charges against him and several key allies will go before a 5-judge panel at Brazil's Supreme Court next week. If judges agree to hear the trial, Bolsonaro and others will become defendants. He has always denied wrongdoing and did so again at his rally on Sunday.
What coup is this that I have to prove I didn't do? It should be the opposite. They should prove that I tried.
The charges against Bolsonaro were filed by Brazil's Prosecutor General last month, accusing him of organizing a criminal group trying to overthrow the country's democracy. They allege a plot to poison President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who won the 2022 race and succeeded Bolsonaro in office. On Sunday, demonstrators demanded pardons for Bolsonaro supporters who were accused of ransacking government buildings days after da Silva's inauguration. Daniel Mesquita told Reuters he joined the rally to call for amnesty.
I am here today to fight for our loved ones who have been imprisoned since January 8th. to ask for amnesty for them, because it is sad and it saddens everyone that they were unjustly arrested.
Bolsonaro told supporters that a bill proposing a pardon for people who participated in the January 8 riots has enough support to be approved in Brazil's lower house. A political scientist who worked on Bolsonaro's 2018 campaign told Reuters that the former leader's strategy relies more than ever on seeking support directly from voters. The Supreme Court did not respond to a request for comment. Bolsonaro is also fighting a ruling by Brazil's Superior Electoral Court, which has barred him from running for public office until 2030. In spite of the ban, he has repeatedly expressed his desire to seek the presidency again in 2026.